45,000 miles later, I'm still driving this grandma car. I can't seem to get rid of it. So today I'm doing a little bit more preventative maintenance. I'm replacing the upper and lower radiator hoses. I'm also going to show you a couple other issues that I've run into that will need to be addressed here soon. And I'm also going to go over some of the mistakes that I've made this year, some things that I've learned. This is definitely one of the easier jobs that I've done. So I've got my cooling system opened up. It's still a little warm, so I'm letting it cool down before I go through dumping all this coolant out. The other thing I'm going to do while I'm in here is I'm going to go ahead and flush out my radiator. I'm just going to run some nice clean water through it, get it as clean as I can, because it has been a little while. But under the hood, things are still looking good. I've got a little bit of residue right down here. It looks like I've got a little bit of an oil leak that I'll need to address here soon. The other thing that I want to point out down here, you can see that there's some residue kind of building up. And as it turns out, these transmission cooler lines are starting to leak. Another thing I want to point out on this serpentine belt, on this one in particular, you can see that it does have some ridges cut into it. But if you look closely, some of those ridges have actually cut almost all the way through. So that's definitely going to need to be replaced here soon as well. Now, one of the reasons that I'm having such a hard time letting go of this car is you can see how dirty it is, what kind of condition it's in. This car has to survive a lot of abuse. These past couple of days have been like -5 Fahrenheit. I mean, I need a car that I can trust to start even in those temperatures, and this car's been able to do it, which has been a real surprise. Even though it's 30 years old, I can still count on this car day in and day out. Now, last time I was underneath here, everything was nice and dry, but I can already see I've got a new oil leak, maybe a transmission leak as well. Looks like possibly a pan gasket could be leaking, but you can see I do have some engine oil residue again, so there is another leak that I will need to fix. So that is my oil level sensor, and what it looks like is the washer that I used to replace it has not done a good enough job to hold it, so I will need to try and find a washer that'll work. What that is, that's one of those metal washers with a rubber inner insert, so I'll just need to find a better one, probably a factory one. Looks like my shock back here in the back has started to leak. That one looks nice and dry. Let's see how these fronts look. Front looks nice and dry. That one looks nice and dry. There is some moisture down here. That's because it's been pretty cold, like I was saying. So there's been some ice and water and snow on the roads as I've been driving. One of the other things that I'm going to be looking into is I'm going to start looking into getting these lower control arms. What I'd like to do is just completely replace the arms. I'd like to replace the lower arm with the bushings as well as the upper arm with the bushings if I can find them complete. That's how I would prefer to do it just because of the age. I would also like to do springs at that time. Not bad for 30 years old, don't get me wrong. It's definitely showing its age, but not terrible for 30 years. We're gonna get this lower radiator hose off. I can get the coolant drained. You can see that the drain is right there, but it's plastic. Anytime that I'm working on a car this old, I do not like to use that little plastic tab. I don't trust them. This many years of hot and cold cycles, I'm more likely to snap it than I am to actually drain it. So for these, what I do to drain it is I just pull off the lower radiator hose. So I'll go ahead and get that done next. So I've got my upper and lower radiator hoses replaced with some new clamps on there. The other thing that I did was just to clean out this radiator, I just flushed some fresh water through it, but everything looks good to go. I'm gonna check and see if we have a vacuum filler cap that will attach to this, so that way I can vacuum fill this and make sure it's leak tight, and we'll go from there. So I was able to leak test my cooling system and everything checked out. So I vacuum filled it, making sure I got all the air bubbles out of it. And I just got done letting it run for a little bit, again, triple checking everything, making sure it's not leaking. And I showed you all a little bit of those repairs that need to be done, so there's more work to be done in the future. There is a balancing act that has to happen between how much money am I willing to spend on repairs, keeping this car alive, versus what would I be willing to spend if I wanted to get something new. I still think that this is the way to go. For someone who can work on their own cars, who isn't afraid to do their own labor, I still think this is 100% the way to go. Maybe get something a bit more economical, not necessarily a V8, but getting these older cars, keeping them running, I think there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of skills that can be learned. And going back to some of the mistakes that I've made over this last year, I'm gonna go grab a part from the Mercedes. So in the last SLK video that I filmed, a couple of the things that I didn't work out very well like I had planned. One of the first things was I rolled one of the wheels on the ground trying to show that my rim was out of round. And a lot of you in the comments were pointing out that rolling the tire on the ground like that is only gonna show the inconsistencies in the tread. And you're right. The better way to have shown that example was to have spun it on the car. If you ever have any question about whether your rim is out of round or not, a decent tire shop with the correct equipment can definitely measure it and let you know. So that's what I said. I had it done, and that's why I tried to demonstrate it. It just didn't work out very well. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the oil filter cap, and I've got that right here. So this is the oil filter cap. A lot of people were saying, oh, maybe I missed an O-ring, but you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 O-rings are all in place. But you can see this little lip right here, this plastic ring. So this is supposed to be part of the oil filter cap. This is not supposed to move around. I shouldn't be able to take this off of the oil filter cap. This is, again, hot and cold cycles over 20 plus years. Your plastic becomes much more brittle, and that's what had happened here. It wasn't over torqued, it was just hot and cold for a long time. I've already got that replaced, so there is more work to be done on the SLK. Oh, and again, I want to say thank you all so much for the support. The fact that this channel is still growing is absolutely mind-blowing. We're over 26,000 subscribers, and I want to say thank you to all of you. I really do appreciate it. I've got some plans for the next year, lots of more content to come, and I hope that you all stick around to see it. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.